Welcome to our latest edition of our Decor webinar. I'll introduce myself, Mick Payne here from Dealer Development, our part of our sales team here at Decor. I'm also joined today by Jake Enns. Jake Enns is a valuable member of the Decor team, has been working with Decor for 32 years up to today, and is involved and has been involved in lots down through the years, everything from our paint and stain, our finishing department, to material selections, to processes, developing SOPs. So has a wealth of experience within the Decor family. Today in the webinar we want to touch a little on, I suppose, the characteristics of woods and the beauty, the challenges that all goes with that, from picking veneers to working with solid lumber to also applying stain to all those different material selections, and like I said, the beauty that comes with that, but also with some of the challenges that comes along with it. We all know, if you're experienced in the industry, that the natural beauty and the variances of woods can be a plus, but sometimes it can be a minus for a client. And so today we're going to touch on some of those challenges, some of those variations, what it all looks like, and just get some in-depth detail from, I would call, one of our experts here at Decor. So yeah, maybe I'll let Jake introduce himself and then we'll get going. Over to you, Jake.
Thanks, Mick. To everybody out there, my name is Jake Enns, like Mick said, working with Decor for 32 years. Like he said, involved in just about every aspect of Decor over the years. My current role now is in engineering as a process technology specialist, and I exclusively support the finishing department, troubleshooting problems, helping them maintain their quality, and those types of things. So I'm here excited to talk about
great, yeah.
And finishes.
Yeah, maybe we'll get the conversation going, Jake. In particular, we'll start off, I suppose, with wood veneers. We relate to them as our V106 door styles, our slab door styles, whether that be maple, alder, whatever the case may be, and all the beauties that go with them, but also all the challenges that comes with, I suppose, a man-made structure, even though the veneers will come from a natural source, but the actual sheet material will be man-made, I suppose. So I'm going to ask Jake maybe to lean in a little bit on our veneers, some of the challenges, maybe some of the makeups that are involved there, and we'll work through then, as our conversation goes along, we'll work through some of the challenges that we face with stains going on these veneers, as well as solid lumbers, and then maybe move on a little to lighting and aging. But I'm going to hand the stage over to Jake for now. We're going to just touch on some of the challenges that goes along with working with veneers, and veneers in particular, and I suppose even versus solid wood. So, but for now we'll start off with veneers, Jake.
Well, veneers, like I've said many times, they're very challenging for stains and transparent colors, what I call them. There's a lot of variation in a particular type of veneer. It all depends on species, type of cuts of the veneers, how it's laid up. There's so many variables involved in creating a good veneer, let alone a veneer that will stain well.
Yeah.
There's, a veneer is made up of, a veneer sheet, for example, is made up of multiple small pieces of veneer that are glued together and laminated, similar to how you glue a wood door panel together. And you're working with 1.5 millimeters of material to do this. And so there's a lot of challenges just making the veneer, but then there's getting to selecting the color. I mean, imagine, if you will, when you're making, you want to make one sheet of veneer or you want to make 50 sheets of veneer. You have a bunch of logs, a stack of logs. And now you're going to create veneer out of all those logs. You're going to peel them, whatever type of cut you're going to use, how to make the veneer. Like there's multiple different types, like rotary cut, plain slicing, quarter slicing, how they make the veneer, and each of those has its own unique type of cut, and produces a unique type of grain. And all of those factors come in later, but it also affects the color and how that color will take color later. So veneers are not easy to make. They're complex, but if you have this pile of logs and you take 20 trees, let's say, you make veneer leaves out of all of them, and you take these 20 trees and you take one component from each 20 trees and you put those into each sheet, right? So your veneer sheet isn't made up of just one log.
Well, that's what I was just going to
or
ask.
one
It's
board.
not necessarily all made from the same tree.
Correct.
It could be picked from different trees.
Right. And so these flitches, when I say flitch, I mean the flitch is the size of each component that's in the sheet. So you have 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, 7-inch pieces in width in there, and that's what makes up the entire sheet. They could be from all 20 trees, and you're only going to get so many sheets out of those 20 trees. Now you can choose to use one tree, for example. That's where you would get something like plain slicing, and you would cut in plain slice, and then you would do the matching, say, in what's called slip match. So you'd cut a bunch of strips out of that tree. Now you lay all those, you slip them over one another. It's kind of like a deck of cards. Like think about sliding a deck of cards off, to the side, and your leaves just lay out. So that's called slip match.
Slip match.
So now you have one sheet made out of one tree. Now that tree could produce 10 sheets, it could produce 20 sheets, it could produce 30 sheets. But eventually they'll run out. Now you got to go to the next tree, right? Now the next tree is going to yield so and so many sheets again. So you're only going to get so and so many sheets that look exactly the same,
Interesting.
or at least very close to the same,
yeah.
right? So when you use that type of matching, that's a risk you take. So from one, say, stack of sheets to another stack of sheets, you could have a variation.
Even within the same material, like a
Exactly.
maple or alder.
It's all maple, it's all cherry, but you can still get that variation. So there's also the what's called book matching, where you basically slice thin layers and then you slice that in half and you basically open it like a book. So now you have a matching mirrored image
per sheet
on that sheet, and you
Okay.
might do that 3-4 times across the sheet. And again, you're only using one log or one set of leaves. So now you end up with a sheet that's very consistent, but you're only going to get, again, so many sheets, right? So a lot of manufacturers use slip match, book match for a lot of different applications. At Decor, we use what's called plank matching, which is quite different from the rest of those.
Okay.
Plank matching it's sometimes called random match too. It's kind of the same. What you're doing is you're taking all 20 trees and you're taking one component out of every tree, and you're making sheets out of all of those trees.
Okay.
So you're going to get very similar looking sheets consistently over a lot more sheets, right,
Okay.
of material. So that creates a little less variability over the long run. So yeah, next time you get another 20 different trees and you're making more veneer, but the consistency of it is more similar than if you're doing slip match or book match or these other types of matching.
Interesting. And we specify that in our purchasing that's the specific cut we look for, and that only.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have all our own specifications that we've worked together with our suppliers to create. There is a lot of references, like I have them here, the Hardwood Plywood Handbook, and also American National Standard for Hardwood and Decorative Plywood. these standards are what most manufacturers who make veneers go by.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean they won't go beyond that. In some cases, they'll make a proprietary grade for you if you want that, right?
Okay.
So
do we want to hold that one up?
Yeah,
If anyone wants to look it up there, feel free. If you really want to get into the details of the plank match and the slip match and all that kind of stuff, this is the book you want. Have a look. What do we say it is?
that's a guide.
The hardware, plywood handbook.
This one here is the actual American National Standard. This is an older one. There's a 2009 version, I believe, that's newer, but this also outlines all the clear specifications in all the veneers of what's allowable for knots, size of knots, worm tracks in maple, mineral streaks, all kinds of characteristics that are in the materials.
Interesting.
And it outlines different grades and what characteristics are allowed in those grades. And most manufacturers, they go by these grades, but then there's, some proprietary stuff that, we might say, we don't like so much mineral streaks in our material, so they might go a little bit extra for us and have a little bit less mineral streaks in the material.
We can dictate some of our own specs.
Some of
potentially.
that, to a point.
To
right?
a point, that's allowable. We are at the end of it. We are dealing with a natural material, so there's not the opportunity to completely control all the stuff that goes on within all the veneers and the trees and how the knots grow, and we can't completely control all that stuff. So veneers, I know you talked to me one of the days on how veneers, which was interesting, and maybe we do that in the next section, but how they pick up colors different potentially within veneers. Within a veneer, you call them the flitches, so you would see those lines within our sheet material. Those we call flitches, and how they can pick up depending on what way they're cut.
Yes.
Jake, you talked about that once.
Yes. There's multiple different dimensions of the cut that affect that. It's not only how the veneer is shaved. So like when you make a rotary cut veneer, it's like peeling an onion. You're just peeling it, or you're peeling an apple. You're just going around and around. And then there's different cuts like plain slice or flat cut or quarter slice, where you're shaving in a different direction to the grain and so forth. So the way the blade hits the material also affects the cut, whether it's the blade pushing the material up or gliding along the bottom as it's peeling the layer up. It's a different type of cut. One is smoother and one is coarser. So when it's shaving, it's tearing the material a little bit, which manufacturers do everything they can to minimize those types of things, like logs are soaked or steamed to keep them moist, and the veneers are kept moist, so they can shave it better.
It doesn't tear as much.
So it doesn't tear as much. But there's still, in the industry, I believe it's called tight side and open side. So you have a tight side where it's much smoother, the grain isn't torn as much, and then you have open side where veneers are a little bit more open, so the grain is torn. And this aspect affects how colors will absorb into it and apply to it. When you have more tearing in, like this, and when I'm talking tearing, it's like microscopic tears in the wood fiber. It's not like big open. I'm not talking about big open tears. So, but it does affect how the wood fiber takes the color.
Interesting.
And the type of matching also. So if you have the type of matching in the cutting, if you have like a plain slice board where you get, or veneer flitch where you get cathedrals, right? You see it often more clear in oak and maple.
Grain.
You get, almost looks like flames, right?
Yeah.
That will take stain differently than something that's quarter sliced, which is very straight, tight grain, right? So those two play an impact. And in a plank match sheet, you are going to have a variation of all of those. You're going to have a variation, so you're going to see some cathedrals, some flitches will have cathedrals, some will have tight grain, and that'll vary throughout the sheets. And so that plays a bit of a role in the actual absorption of the colorant. So it can give you lighter, darker, can really absorb quite a bit.
Would you say that those rules that you talk about there and those variations would hold true to all the wood species, or is there some better than other in your experience at being a little bit more consistent?
Well, harder woods like maple and even cherry, although even though it's considered hardwood, is a little softer than maple.
Yeah.
But most hardwoods are better in that regard.
Okay.
When you have different types of grain or different types of cut, and you have open side or tight side, the maple is much better for that because it cuts and peels better. Softer woods like pine, not the greatest for that. You're going to get a lot more variation in the color on something like pine, or like alder is considered a hardwood, although it's quite a bit softer.
Quite soft, yeah.
Than even cherry. But most hardwoods work really well. I was going to clarify one thing when I was talking about tight side, open side. In most of our specifications, we've talked with suppliers over the years that when they make veneers, we always want what's called tight side out. So we want the tight side, the smoothest part of the cut, to be face up as our faced veneer.
Okay.
As
a default, yeah. Okay.
Not all companies do that or want that, but that's how we set up a lot of our veneers with suppliers over the years, is to have tight side out. So it gives you more consistent color application than when you have the open side up.
Interesting. Okay.
Right.
So we do put a lot of effort into keeping those specs as tight as we possibly can, whether it be consistency in cuts. You talked about tight side up. You said we deal with only, what was it again? Plank match, was it?
Yes, plank match is the main
one. So we do go to as best we can, as many take as many steps as we can to keep all those specs as tight as we possibly can. Yes. And then which leads to a more consistent veneers, which in turn will keep as best again as we can more consistent colors within those veneers. So I feel like veneers and that whole world we could sit and talk about for the day, but we I suppose the idea for today is to just give you some sort of a broad idea of what goes on behind the scenes to make your sheet material, and some of the makeup, and maybe will help you in conversations with a client or a homeowner to be able to better explain some of the challenges that goes with selecting veneers. Like we said, this can be part of the beauty of them, obviously no different than any wood, but also can create some challenges potentially with inconsistency. So we just want to better educate you today as best we can, anyway, without boring the socks off you. So that's a little bit veneers. Jake, was there anything else you wanted to add? Do we want to, like, veneers versus solid?
Sure.
We have a little bit to talk about solid woods versus veneers. We talked a bit about veneers there, but we also obviously offer solid lumber, and that can come with its challenges too. And again, no different than our veneers. It's a natural resource, so we can control, like we say, some of those specs to a degree, but we obviously can't completely control the variances, and that comes with, I say, and especially when it comes to, I want to say, not all. Obviously, we're painting a substructure, you don't see any of this, but I feel like, which are hugely popular in the industry right now, is our lighter stains. We know they're a big seller, especially like our urban collection. When we start putting these, or then we go to any natural finishes, can be a huge challenge. And again, some of the beauty can be that variance, but also some of the headaches can be those variances too. It depends on your homeowner. So we just want to better educate you today on what some of those challenges are and what to look out for when you're selecting your finishes, your stains, or your naturals. What's to be expected and what's not to be expected. So. Yeah, we wanted to touch maybe on the solid side of things, Jake, and some of the challenges there within wood species. I mean, we've everything from maple, alder, oak, and cherry there as well, which all have their own unique challenges. But maybe let you touch a little on the solid side of things.
Sure. I'll touch one more point on the veneers quickly. When I'm talking about tight side and plate matching, that's exclusively on the face of the veneers. Okay, so the front side.
Okay.
So on a door grade, it's the face side. On a cabinet side, it's the face side. So on the backs of our veneers, we have a different type of matching. We use slip match and plate match on the back side.
Okay.
So any face veneer, whether it's quarter inch, 3/4, 5/8, the face is always that plate match. The back is typically on a lot of veneers, slip match or plate match.
Interesting. Okay.
So if it makes it obvious to see back to front.
Okay.
So you can't really mix them up through manufacturing.
Okay.
It should be very clear that that's a pattern, that's the back, right? So on the front you won't see a pattern, and so that has a big impact on people who are drilling or cutting and which side is which, so you can identify a lot easier because they're not the same.
Yeah.
So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Solid lumber, it's very similar to veneers. We have all of ours. You won't see a pattern, and so that has a big impact on people who are drilling or cutting and which side is which, so you can identify it a lot easier because they're not the same.
Yeah.
So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Solid lumber, it's very similar to veneers. We have all of our species. We typically buy specific grades. Again, we have there's a different handbook here, which is where you get your solid lumber grading from. This is called the NHLA rule book. It's National Hardwood Lumber Association standard. So all the specs are in this book. And again, we have manufacturing specs that is kind of industry
and talk about for the day. But we, you know, I suppose the idea for today is to just give you some sort of a broad idea of what goes on behind the scenes to make your sheet material, and some of the makeup, and maybe will help you in conversations with a client or a homeowner to be able to better explain some of the challenges that goes with selecting veneers. Like we said, this can be part of the beauty of them, obviously no different than any wood, but also can create some challenges potentially with inconsistency. So we just want to better educate you today as best we can, anyway, without boring the socks off you. So that's a little bit veneers. Jake, was there anything else you wanted to add? Do we want to, like, veneers versus solid?
Sure.
We have a little bit to talk about solid woods versus veneers. We talked a bit about veneers there, but we also obviously offer solid lumber, and that can come with its challenges too. Again, no different than our veneers. It's a natural resource, so we can control, like we say, some of those specs to a degree, but we obviously can't completely control the variances, and that comes with, I say, and especially when it comes to, I want to say, not all, obviously if we're painting a substructure you don't see any of this, but I feel like which are hugely popular in the industry right now is our lighter stains. We know they're a big seller, especially like our urban collection. When we start putting these, or then we go to any natural finishes, can be a huge challenge. And again, some of the beauty can be that variance, but also some of the headaches can be those variances too. It depends on your homeowner. So we just want to better educate you today on what some of those challenges are and what to look out for when you're selecting your finishes, your stains or your naturals, what's to be expected and what's not to be expected. So yeah, if we wanted to touch maybe on the solid side of things, Jake,
Sure.
and some of the challenges there within wood species. I mean, we've everything from maple, alder, oak, and cherry there as well, which all have their own unique challenges. But maybe let you touch a little on the solid side of things.
Sure. I'll touch one more point on the veneers quickly. When I'm talking about tight side and plank matching, that's exclusively on the face of the veneers. Okay, so the front side.
Okay.
So on a door grade, it's the face side. On a cabinet side, it's the face side. So on the backs of our veneers, we have a different type of matching. We do slip match and plank match on the back side.
Okay.
So any face veneer, whether it's 1/4 inch, 3/4, 5/8, the face is always that plank match. The back is typically on a lot of veneers slip match or plank match.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. So it makes it obvious to see back to front.
Okay.
So you can't really mix them up through manufacturing.
Yeah, okay.
It should be very clear that, oh, that's a pattern, that's the back, right? So on the front you won't see a pattern. And so that has a big impact on, people who are drilling or cutting and which side is which. So you can identify it a lot easier because they're not the same, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Solid lumber, it's very similar to veneers. We have, all of our species. We typically buy specific grades again. We have, there's a different handbook here, which is where you get your solid lumber grading from. This is called the NHLA rule book. It's National Hardwood Lumber Association standards. Okay. So all the specs are in this book. And again, we have manufacturing specs that is kind of industry wide for lumber manufacturers. But then there's also proprietary grades, like
same as the veneers.
Same as the veneers. You might ask for something very specific, right? You might not want this characteristic. You want less of that characteristics. So it gives you some flexibility. It gives the manufacturer some flexibility in when they produce the grade for you. So So most of our grades are first and seconds is what's called first and seconds, or another term is select and better. I think that's one grade lower. Uh, so we buy a top of the line face side on most of our boards, just like our veneers, and we also allow some characteristics like in the back. And so the in the manual or in this guide, the rule book, there is rules for clear cuttings on boards. You know, how much percentage of that board is clear. It's how lumber's graded. So the more clear cuttings you have on, say, an 8-foot board, the better the grade is. So if you have a knot every 3 feet, now that's a different grade, right?
Okay.
So lumber is graded on its characteristics per board. I've been to a few mills and seen this actually in action, and watched how lumber graders grade, and it is quite amazing what they do. But we try to control to the best of our ability our materials with our suppliers so that we get consistency not only in color but also in quality on a consistent basis. And I've been working with Decor, like I said, 32 years, and we've got some pretty great suppliers that we've worked with over the years, and we have some pretty amazing wood lumber grades that they make for us. And that's why, you know, a color can be the same for 20 years straight.
Yeah, fair.
Doesn't mean there weren't color problems in there somewhere,
Yeah.
but that's how you keep a color consistent over 20 years, right? So, you know, we have lots of older colors that we still do,
Yeah, true.
right? But they are consistent, and that's a testament to, you know, following the grade, following the rules, making sure we have the right materials to do the job. It's the same with veneers too. If you're, you know, changing suppliers or going to a new supplier, for whatever the reasons you might have that happen, you have to be careful, right? So you test the colors on those veneers, and you do all these things. You test the colors on those lumbers to make sure that you can keep your color consistent without changing your application or having to reformulate your stain or your toners or your colors. So I've worked in a lot of those projects too over the years where we've, you know, looked at different suppliers for different materials and done all that type of testing. And we want to keep our colors consistent for our customers, for our dealers, for the homeowner. You know, we want them to get what they're actually ordering, not something completely different, right? So the lumber, like I was saying, it's made pretty much the same as veneers. You have a back and you have a front, right? We allow more characteristics on the back, like a few more mineral streaks or, you know, little pin knots and things more on the back sides. We also grade a bit by the color that we apply to it, but that's more of an internal type grading that we do as we build the doors. Say we're going to laminate a maple panel for a natural finish with just a clear finish on it. On the shop floor, they'll select material and try to blend the color. They'll blend the color to make it as uniform as possible on the panel, the same way they make veneers.
Okay.
They're trying to always blend the color
Keep it as
to keep it as consistent as possible.
Gotcha.
So you have only slight color variation,
Okay.
as slight as possible. So they'll blend it to make it more uniform. Whereas when you go to a dark color, like a dark stain, really dark stain, like something like espresso or even charcoal, you're going to allow a little more color variation when you're selecting and laying up that panel.
And then that's all done through our internal processes of we can pick out depending on the stain, the paint, whatever the case may be. Okay.
Yeah, that's done right on the shop floor when they're, you know, pulling material for laminating. Operators will do that right at that point. And we have a lot of great people making doing a lot of good work. Although, you know, sometimes things happen, right? You get one bad door, you see, oh, that contrast is pretty high. Yeah. Oh, we weed those out in production too. Like they get weeded out along the process. Not all get caught sometimes, right? You get the odd door or something that gets out that slips through. Yeah. But everyone is always doing their best to try to make that as beautiful as possible and as uniform as possible. So,
Yeah, I feel like it's a huge challenge to we keep talking about that consistency and picking out pieces and knowing what stain is being applied. Is it paint? Is it stain? Is it a dark stain? Is it a light stain? And I have to make my selections accordingly. So we have lots of processes in place here, but as Jake said, sometimes stuff can slip through the cracks because it's a difficult job to do.
yes.
And is to pick out and be as consistent as possible. But nonetheless, we put a huge amount of effort into trying to be as consistent as possible. Again, I feel like veneers, we could talk forever here, Jake, but we just kind of wanted to touch on some of these topics. Next one we want to move on to, unless Jake has anything to add, would be, we hear within our day-to-day, we talk about stains in particular. We hear the word tone, or we hear the word stain, we hear the word top coat thrown around there. I wanted to touch a little today with Jake on what a toner is, what it does, the challenges of working with veneers versus solid, our stains, how they can affect a colour, and our top coats then I think as well we'll touch on. So I'm going to let Jake talk a little, maybe start off particularly on our toners and how they play a key role in creating some of those colours for Decor.
All right. Everything starts with the material itself, the veneer. The type of veneer, what material you're spraying, you're going to apply it to, you're going to spray on. And like we talked earlier, that's about cutting method and selection and blending color as best possible. So that's really where everything starts to try to make a color, to get a color, right? So it starts with that. And then you're going to, you make your doors, you get everything built and ready, and you prep sand it. Sanding is a big component before you finish, how you do your finish sand and prep for your finishing coats.
Okay.
That has a lot to do as well with how color is applies
in
to.
what way, Jake, briefly?
Well, like you have different grades of sandpaper. You have coarser, finer, right? And what sandpaper you use can determine how that cuts on the wood fiber when you're trying to sand it and sand it smooth. So that can affect color, can affect how a toner or a stain absorbs into the material. That's what's cutting off wood fiber, right, to make it as smooth as possible so that the color that you apply is going to go on well. So there's a lot of processes and procedures in place for how we sand, what grits of sandpaper we use. We have standards and procedures for all of that before we even get to the application. So all of those things affect what happens with the toner and the stain when you apply them later. But the toner itself is basically, it's going to try to blend the contrasting areas. It's mostly made with dyes.
Okay.
Right? It's a solvent-based product. So most of what you're applying evaporates, right? You're applying these dyes over the wood to get a little more uniformity than what you see on the raw material.
And how do we apply those, Jake? We apply them with a spray?
Yeah, we apply manually with a spray gun. We have great operators. Toning is, I've said it many times, it's one of the most challenging jobs as a finished sprayer, to be consistent and uniform when you're applying it. Again, lots of procedures, very specific things like air pressure and, what your pattern size is, how close you spray, all those things affect the colors. So that's on top of, what the toner itself does. And the toner is just, all you're trying to do with the toner is to try to even out the color variation that you do have a little bit. It won't hide all of it, but it will hide some of it.
Okay.
And that's the goal, is the toner helps you get closer to blend those differences in the variation a little bit better than they are naturally. So that's where you start. And the lighter toner or darker toner, those also play a different role. So a lighter toner isn't going to blend it as well
Okay.
from a lighter, say, flitch to a darker flitch. A darker toner will do that better.
So
Okay.
it's like you say, as you get into the espressos, and they
Yes.
will hide that variation better than
Yes, they will.
some of our urban, for argument's sake.
Yeah, and unless you have a really extreme contrast on a dark color, like you have a really extreme contrast on the raw material, even a dark color can't fix that.
Yeah, fair.
Right.
Okay.
So that's where we weed those types of things out often through production, right? You see, oh, that door is just not looking right with the rest of that. We got to redo that. We got to get that door out of here. That does not match or blend with the rest of the job. And that happens throughout the process to keep the job uniform. The stain is the second part.
Okay.
Most of our stain, what we call stain colors, are a toner stain combination. A majority of them are. The stains are mostly ground pigment. So like I think I mentioned it to you the other day, it's like a paint. When you have a pail of paint at home, even your latex for your walls, and you let it sit for a while and you stir it up, you got this stuff at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the pigment. That's the pigment that makes the color. So stains have a lot of pigment in them. And pigments grind into the material. They grind into the grain when you wipe them. You apply them, you spray them just like you do toners.
Okay.
But then you wipe them when they're wet to spread them out and even out the color. So stains do a great job of blending a little bit more on top of that toner application. So both together give you a much better, more uniform finish than if you were using one or the other. Stains, we do have colors that are only stains.
With no tone or base.
With no toner beneath them. A lot of them are on the darker side.
Okay.
They're darker colors. I believe most walnut colors, the colors are stain only applications, and on top of natural where we just apply clear coats. But they're mostly stains, and walnut's already naturally dark.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of variation, so that can be a bit of a challenge. So again, it now goes back to the grade of the walnut, what we want from our supplier, what we want in our overall color of the material and so forth. So in a color like or a substrate like walnut, and any wood species for that matter, I'll just touch on this for a minute, you have what's called heartwood and sapwood, okay? So sapwood is the new growth of a tree, and heartwood is the old growth of the tree. Typically, most species, the heartwood is darker. It's a darker color. It's usually browner, darker, and the sapwood is lighter. So, in our grades of whether it's veneers or solid lumber, we don't want one or the other depending on the grade. So, for example, walnut is, if you look at a walnut tree and you cut it off, you look at the trunk, the majority of that tree is dark with a smaller amount of light around the outside. That's your new growth, right? So when you cut walnut, you get a lot of heartwood out of a walnut tree, not a lot of sapwood. But it can be brown, dark brown, like really dark, and sapwood is very white, almost looks like maple in the color. So in our grades, we don't want sapwood. So we specify that with our suppliers that we don't want sapwood in our walnut. And then maple's the opposite. Maple, the center of a maple tree, maple trees grow differently. So the center heartwood of a maple is a lot less. So you have mostly new growth on maple trees. So your heartwood is less. So you want that white maple, right? You want that whitish, really white maple. Well, that's sapwood. So on maple, the spec is kind of the opposite. We don't want heartwood, we want sapwood. Right? So that's how we get our colors consistent. We don't want to mix, and you can really see it. Actually, I saw a door the other day of oak where there was some sap oak in a panel, and yeah, it was like white,
Oh, okay.
right? It does not fit at all. And so it does happen that there's still a bit in a grade here or there, like there might be a small sliver of it or whatever. And often those cause us problems when if they make it through, that's a problem, causes the customer a problem, especially the customer, because now they have to, well, no, it's going to go back and we got to redo it, right? So, and so we go to a lot of lengths to try to avoid that, right? We want to make sure the material's good. We don't, so the sapwood and heartwood play a role in stains and colors. So walnut, it's a dark sapwood, so we apply only stains. We don't really need a toner to blend it
Interesting.
because it's a lot more consistent.
Yeah, okay.
On the solid lumber, veneers can still be a bit of a play because they're matched, right? They're, again, from different trees that make up, which is a little bit different. When you build doors, you buy a lift of lumber, you can only make so many doors out of that lumber, but every lift of lumber has to be consistently the same, right? So you're buying lumber from the same suppliers, from the same regions, so they have the same growth. Go back to maple for a second. I was saying how you want that really white maple, right? Maple is, in winter, it's white. So when you cut down a maple tree in winter, when you debark it and you make material out of it, it will be whiter. Through spring to fall and summer months, it's very yellow.
Oh, interesting.
It can be very yellow, almost like pine. So we specifically use winter cut maple only, right? That's what helps us keep consistent with our colors, right?
Okay.
So there's a lot of variables in the stains themselves, like I was saying, going back to application. So, we do the best we can with the material, we do the best sanding we can, and now we do the best application we can possibly do. But those variations, they all play a part, right? We do everything we can to best blend it. And the stains by themselves, say on maple, if you do a stain only on a maple product, it looks terrible.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah.
Maple just a stain is awful looking.
Okay.
So, oak, on the other hand, it's a beautiful wood if you have the right color stain and you're only applying a stain to it. It can be beautiful, gorgeous material. But every species lends itself differently to different types of colors.
I've seen many a time where we try to keep potentially a sheet material or even solid lumber for that case as consistent as possible, and to a degree sometimes even handpick sheet material, and until and it looks really consistent in sheet form before it's any stains applied, but as soon as the stain or the toner is applied, it pops.
That's where
you see before that it looked 100% consistent, but as soon as you applied your stain or your toner, whatever the case may be, or both, that's where the variations potentially pop out, and you get away from that inconsistency then. So it can be a huge challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with a stain, that's worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Just a straight stain.
Yeah.
But now, stains too, it depends on how dark a stain or how light a stain you apply, because stains, they're not all just dark, right? So we have a lot of colors that are lighter toners with lighter stains. So the overall color is lighter. Like you were talking about, you were talking about at the beginning, was it the Urban Collection?
Urban Collection, yeah.
That's the loft and those types of colors, right?
Yep.
Yeah, those can be especially challenging because they're a light toner with a light stain.
Okay, interesting.
So the stain, it's very different than a charcoal. You got a dark stain or a dark toner and a dark stain. That's a different
that can drown out lots for us.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's still more challenges with lighter colors, trying to blend as best possible than there is with darker colors. Stains, again, on those colors, you don't want them to do a lot. You don't want them to alter the color, because each layer you put on, like you apply the toner, that gives it a certain color, right? Now you apply the stain, Now that changes the color a bit.
Okay.
How that stain is formulated determines how much that color changes when you apply it, right? And stain is wiped. So now you're working it over the surface. You're pushing that pigment into the grain of the wood. Most of that stain is really just sitting on top, and the pigment is what you're pushing into the wood pores, right? And so that's what gives you that color. Toners work the other way around. They absorb in, like they just absorb right in. So they that's why you're putting that on before the stain. So the stain, they absorb in. They kind of blanket a little bit. Now the stain comes, and the stain
can be a little bit more consistent
more
potentially.
so,
yeah.
So most often you're using them in combination. You're better off doing a toner stain combination. In some cases, you don't want a certain appearance or a certain look of the grain or a look of the finish, so you might only want a stain, right?
Okay.
Stain will really make grain stand out. That's why I say, look, stains on maple look horrible.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it just does not
Yeah.
look appealing to anyone that I've ever met.
Yeah. Fair.
And
I agree.
We've tried.
Yeah. Okay.
But overall, stains, toners, and stains, it's a real challenge to use them, and it takes a lot of skill to apply them.
Yeah. Okay.
And to do that consistently when you have 100 parts, so you got your doors, your panels, and your sides, and your moldings, and you're blending that all together, and being consistent in that application is difficult. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've been a toner sprayer in my early years, and it's hard.
It's difficult. Okay.
It builds a lot of skill. I always say if you can do that spray application, you can spray anything else.
Okay.
Because it's the most difficult when it comes to consistency. Yeah.
Interesting. Again, I feel like we could spend a huge amount of time there. Talk a little bit about our top coat, Jake, unless there's anything else. I mean, that's just as it is, just finishes that top coat. Does it enhance color in any way, shape, or form?
Sure. Top coats, they have their own challenges.
Okay.
Just like anything else when you're finishing. I'll go back to stains a little bit. So as I was saying, pigments and dyes, right? Pigments are UV, they're kind of like UV inhibitors. So when you're using high pigment stains and stuff like that, they're actually protecting everything. So they'll protect that color. So anything made with more pigments will hold its color longer.
Okay.
It won't fade or discolor as quickly as something that is, say, just dyes. Dyes will fade or discolor much quicker. So that's why when you apply toner, you never want to use a toner by itself.
Okay.
You're almost always putting a stain on it. So that's where the color, the aging process can start, right? So the top coats, the clear coats that you apply, they're all UV resistant. They all have UV inhibitors. They're all tested against different UV rays by your coating manufacturers. I've done it many times where we create our own control panels. We work together with our coating suppliers, and then we put them through testing. They go through cycle checks for hot, heat, and cold, and they get exposed to UV light for extended periods of time. So we do all that testing prior to, almost any finish. But it doesn't mean it doesn't yellow or change color, right? Dyes, for example, if you did a toner only on a color and you apply your sealer and your clear top coat to it, the sealer and top coat probably won't yellow that quickly, but the dye underneath probably will start to discolor, right? And so that's why, you have a color with a stain, it's not going to be the same. It's going to age better, right? Clear coats, light exposure is the biggest issue when it comes to any finish discoloring or changing over time. But it's a fact that, you know, every color will change. It's only a matter of time and how much exposure it has to light sources. And it's not just sunlight. Um, Things like fluorescents, halogens, uh, they will also over time
Okay.
discolor, right? They'll discolor a finish or a color, you know, so no different than your car.
Yep.
Your car ages, it
Yep.
discolors. You want to repaint a fender 10 years later, and you're going to buy that paint, but it doesn't match, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's the same paint,
Yeah.
right? It's the same because the clear coat fades, the color fades, it's discolored from sunlight, right? So anywhere you have more exposure to sunlight, that's where you're going to see more aging. And you know, like I said, we buy the best finishes we can, right? To minimize that, so that takes as long as possible, right? So that doesn't, you know, tomorrow it's a different color, right? We don't that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, 10 years from now,
You
you're
can't
going to
stop
see some
that,
transition.
yeah.
You have a 10-year-old kitchen,
Yeah.
and you have to replace a door. It's just like a car. You might have to get that color matched up,
Matched
right?
up. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the clear coats themselves, they are, like I said, UV resistant. They, you know, they will resist UV rays. But halogen lights, they are also not the greatest. I mean, I don't know, it's, you know, 90s and early 2000s, everyone was putting in pot lights and halogens and stuff like that, right? And so they not only give off a lot of heat, they get, there's a lot of light, right? So now you got heat and light, just like sunlight.
Okay.
Now you have them, say, you know, right up in front of your upper cabinets. You might see some change over time on that upper section, right? Because it's gonna excel the aging a little bit.
Okay.
Or you have areas where you have direct sunlight. Like there's things to mitigate that from happening. So that's why you use pigments instead of dyes. You use stains, right? That helps that process. That's why you have clear coats that use UV inhibitors. That slows down that process, you know. And as a homeowner, I mean, you can you know, what is it called? You can use tint on your windows.
Okay. Yeah.
That can help, right?
Yeah.
If you have like, you know, really bright area and you got a lot of direct sunlight.
And some of these windows now you can have it built in that stop the UV rays coming in, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's
like
all
just like your car windows are built
Yeah,
that way, right? Like to block UV rays.
Yeah.
So that's happening also in, you know, construction and window construction. So all of those things are to mitigate the aging.
Yeah.
But eventually everything will change.
It's always a good one if our designers are working and want to replace a door, I don't know, 2-3 years later, and you go look at it's the same color, whether that be, we'll say, Chantilly lace for argument's sake. I feel like that aging process that Jake talked about, it's always probably a good fail-safe to get the door matched, because I don't know if you could put a definitive time frame on it, but all the parts Jake talked about play a role in discoloring or fading those colors. So if you're replacing a door 2-3 years later, I would be cautious and maybe do a special match for argument's sake, instead of just taking it as an automatic. I'll reorder Chantilly lace and expect it to match. I don't think that would be a good idea, at least anyway, you know.
Yeah, like paints. We haven't really touched on paints yet, but paints are no different than toners and stains and clear coats. They do have more pigment. So because paints are essentially just pigment mostly, with the odd dye to enhance the color, to change it. But they too, like you're saying, they'll yellow. So yeah, it's a good idea to, you know, have somebody look at it. Like our color team, they do a great job matching colors.
Matching colors,
And they can match just about anything. Whites are particularly challenging because outside of more other colors. But they'll, like I was saying, they'll fade over time. They'll yellow a bit over time, But the paints are just like the clears.
Yeah.
They have UV inhibitors. They have everything in them to try to prolong that change over time and exposure.
And
So
yeah, and I picked a paint as an example. Maybe it was the wrong one to pick, but would they be similar to stains, would you say?
yes,
Yeah, okay.
stains,
Similar concept.
same
Yeah.
same concept.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it doesn't mean it has to be matched, but to be sure,
Yeah.
like would if we get a sample back from a customer or something, and we'll take a look at it and we'll go, oh, we'll check it to our standards, and it might match perfectly fine.
Yeah, yeah, fair. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It all depends on
Yeah.
the environment it's been in,
Yeah.
and the exposure
Yeah.
it's been in.
Yeah.
And we might say, oh, yeah, it's exactly Chantilly lace. We don't have to do a match for this,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
We can just spray it with the normal coating.
Yeah.
But then the next time, you have a different environment, and it's been exposed to a lot of sunlight, and it's yellowed quite a bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now you're going to have to add some
adjustments
and to match
it's
it up.
a good segue in, Jake, which I wanted to take the opportunity, especially when it comes, which this can be, and I've seen it tripping people up, is our sample chips. And I would encourage change them. And I don't know, if I'm honest, what that magic time frame is. But I urge change them every so often. We do have expiry dates on them for all the reasons Jake talked about. Is that, and again, that depends on where they're stored. Are they stored somewhere where there's no windows? Are they front and center where the light is getting at them all the time? Well, this can have an effect on how they age, and you're selling these particular colors as one thing, but in fact, actually, I mean, obviously they're not going to be radically different, but shade or tint wise, depending on how much sunlight they got, could vary. So we urge people, or I want to urge people at least, please check those expiry dates on your samples. They're there for a reason. All the reasons we talked about. We just don't want them to trip you up someday, where a certain color has faded, depending on the exposure to light. And in fact, it's maybe a shade different when you get your sampled or whatnot. So keep an eye on those expiry dates. I do want to make people aware, we talked about a lot of stuff today here, which is incredible stuff. We could go on and on and on. I do urge you to go to our, lots will be familiar with our DSS homepage. Within there, within the sales tools section and the forms library, we have a wood characteristics PDF document, which has a whole host of incredible information, even more than what we got the opportunity to touch on today. It talks about some of the what's acceptable when it comes to knots, mineral streaks. There's a whole host of good stuff in there, and I urge you, the better you can be educated on all the challenges and beauties that go with all the different materials we have available, the better you are set up to talk to your homeowner and educate them on all the challenges and what they're picking and the colors and the stains and all that kind of stuff. So keep in mind, DSS within sales tools, go into the forms library, and there's a whole host of good stuff there on wood characteristics. But for today, that's kind of it in a nutshell. We appreciate everyone's time. Hope you took a lot of good stuff from this. Appreciate Jake's expertise, and we'll look forward to the next time. For now, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.